All right, hey everybody, my name is Cannon. Thank you all for allowing a non-dev to talk to you today. This has, I actually think, pretty decent implications or a vector for devs to put their head around. It's getting out from behind the keyboard a bit, but there's a lot of protocol that would need to be developed. So anyway, long and short of it, I talked to this a little bit over the last year, mentioned it to Joe a couple times, and he asked me to give a presentation on it. I think it'll be interesting. And so I did. So here we are. Commercial barter meets permissionless infrastructure. I will try not to read the slides. That'll be the only one. So let's get going. A hidden B2B economy, but we're here for peer-to-peer. Um, Most crypto is looking at speculation, right? Look at yesterday, big crash, people on dexes, sort of playing lotto. Um, Bartering worldwide is, or in North America, is about a 12 to $14 billion market. What we're focusing on is a smaller subset that is um, like non-governmental, uh, big, huge corporate kind of moves. Um, so anyway, they're tax compliant. That's one of the things that people often get confused by. Um, And you don't really need to convince these guys about not using fiat. They use their own barter currency. So what is a barter exchange? It's not eggs for tomatoes. Sorry, Jemai. Um, not getting chickens from the Russians down the street or selling them. It is not skirting tax laws, doing something for cash to try to, get a little bit more juice in your pocket. Um, and it's not government counter trade deals. Now, that is a larger barter thing where, like, a city might give somebody like advertising or something at a big fair and you reciprocate. That's part of the bigger number. It's a formal B2B exchange network. This is probably one of the only few slides I'll read, but they do real accounting and tax reporting. So you actually get a 1099B. So those of you in the US that have been a contractor before, you get a 1099. You usually don't look at the letter, but B is for barter, C is for whatever. There's several of them. Uh, there are large networks, 140 million annually. ITEX is the biggest. IMS is independent. They have franchises. And then you have regional networks like the local trade partners, which is in my area. They're a couple hours away from me. They're doing about 10 million a year. And we'll talk about them a little bit more specifically. And then Rocky Mountain Barter, I found one that's actually here. I think they're out of Colorado Springs. They do about 500,000 a year. And again, this is not using cash. It's using, I mean, you're bartering and then receiving credits in a barter currency. Um, so what about regional currencies? It is not Berkshire's, Ithaca Hours, Petit Monet. I think I showed that to Luca. It's outside of Montreal in sort of a little enclave. They've printed their own currency. I mean, it's sweet looking. Um, a lot of those are geographic based, they're time based, and they get a big bump and then they fall apart. And most of them don't scale beyond $1 million. So it's not that they don't fail, but uh, from a dev standpoint or a protocol standpoint, it's hard to create a business around something that doesn't scale beyond $1 million. I mean, it's a pretty small fish. Um, these are business to business networks. They have their own ledger systems. We'll get into that just briefly. The network operator actually provides a ton of value. They will mediate, they will help push deals across the table, um, and their scale. I mean, it's 2.5 billion conservatively a year for the last, I mean, growing, but I mean, it's a big number. Um, Here's an example. Uh, Local trade partner in my area in the Ozarks in sort of central, mid, south central. in the US. Alice builds a deck for somebody, gets paid 50,000 or 55,000 in credits. Those credits are LTP credits, so local trade partner currency credits. You get a statement every month from them, like a bank, saying, hey, here's how many credits you have. She gets that full value. It's pretty small up there, but her variable cost is $3,000. Come to find out a couple months later, that year, whatever, she needs to get a couple crowns in her head for teeth. There's a lot of dentists on these things, honestly. And so she pays that dentist 4,500 in credits. That dentist gets the full 4,500. What she has to do in our local trade partner exchange is she has to pay 10% to the local trade partner, like organization. So she pays 49.50 out of pocket or using her credits. And so you're sort of thinking, well, that's just a swap, right? Like you're swapping horses, nothing really happened for you there. Well, if her variable cost was 3 grand and she just got $4,500 worth of new teeth in her head, she actually made a 50% ROI. And so we're going to hammer that home a little bit in this. It's pretty common in business. Not a lot of people do it well, but it's variable costing. You can have fixed costs. You always got to pay them. You always got to pay rent. You always got to pay payroll, unless you got guys on a really flexible schedule. You got cars, you got equipment, but what was your actual variable cost? So for her building a deck, she had a little bit of lumber, a little bit of labor, and that's it. Um, so she was able to turn that 3,000 into $4,500 worth of teeth. Some, do you have a question or yeah? Okay. Yeah, variable. And there's, I use this Alice example sort of throughout, and there's a few others, but I try to carry this one throughout the thing. Um, and so it's idle capacity arbitrage, right? So Dev, perk up your ears. You heard arbitrage. How do I make money on this? Um, so without barter, she has an idle crew and equipment that day that they were building that deck. She didn't get the business. You will, once you're in these networks and you're established and you've sort of like put your name out there, you start getting business that you wouldn't normally get because people have this sort of fake ROI you can create from, your own value. So basically, the dental work would cost her 4,500 bucks out of pocket. Like we said, with barter, 3,000 variable cost, she makes about 1,500 bucks, the difference between the 3,000 she spent to build that deck for somebody and what she receives in value from the dentist. So sort of think about like Airbnb with an empty room or a hotel with an empty room, right? Like what's that variable cost for them to book you one night? It's not a lot. Or think about your mining rig with excess electricity, right? Or you've paid off the cards, so you're not worried about depreciating those cards into the cost of the coin you're mining. Um, so this is uh, we talked about it a bit, about 2.5 billion in the retail barter exchange sector. That's mainly, I'm looking at North America. There are definitely some in Europe as well and Asia, about 400 across the globe. Um, this is again only about a 20% of the subset, and this is really the only one that I would think anyone would focus on. Geographic industry, we'll get to that. What makes an ideal business for bartering? High fixed costs or no fixed costs, low marginal costs, perishable capacity. So think of time constraint, think of your hotel rooms, restaurant, your tables. You can only have people eat that night and then it's gone till the next day. Having excess capacity and being an independent owner. Um, so there's some ratios I put on here and whatnot. People can look at the slides later. Um, uh, a few of the things, this will be a little hard to see maybe. Well, no, it shows up pretty good. Um, Really your best options, I sort of went through these and sort of scored them out. Your best ones are hotels, advertising media. I'd put programming in there as well with advertising media. Uh, Pet boarding, because if anyone's boarded their dog, right, like no one's doing anything. They're checking them like once a day or twice a day. Like, I mean, they're already there checking other dogs. Um, Chiropractic, a lot of them they're already doing a lot of cash business. So this is another way for them to sort of enhance it. Legal services, usually you have to be solo. It's hard to do it as part of a bigger like legal practice because billable hours and all that kind of crap. Accounting, if you're tax focused. And then dental's a little harder. If you're an independent standalone, that's great. Like my cousin, he has his own, dental practice for the last like 25, 30 years. If you're newer coming out of dental school, typically you start working for somebody or a corporation that owns like multiple dental offices. It's harder to break into it because of the debt coming out of school and the equipment cost. Same thing for veterinarians if they're independent. That's a good one. So real world economics, hotel, you have 300 hotel rooms here in downtown Colorado Springs. Uh, Federal government shut down, so you're at least a third behind. If you can charge $100 a night on those rooms, you'd make 15,000 bucks. Actual cost is some cleaning supplies. Maybe have to bring in one extra person to clean them, two extra people. And so you can start looking at what your effective return is. Again, that's another example of the sort of variable cost versus fixed costs. They already had to pay electricity for the day, water bill, everything else to maintain the hotel property. But your variable cost in the hotel is truly only your cleaning staff and the supplies they use to clean the room. Uh, Deep dive. So the network operators, the people who run these barter exchanges, um, they are a trusted intermediary. So think of maybe like Rosen, even like in between a transaction, like you're submitting it, sort of you can see it. Uh, they're a little bizarre. They're all over the map. Some charge a sign up fee. The one I'm in is free, like no fees other than that 10%. Some charge you a monthly fee in cash and currency. Some charge anywhere from 6 to 15% on your spending. Some charge you when you receive as well. So I mean, it's like they're all over the map on where they're taking your money or taking the credits. Um, this one doesn't really matter. Yeah. So they have a dollar peg mechanism in theory. And I say in theory, ITEX, they were a public company. Again, they're the biggest one. They had a SEC fraud case right around the dot-com bubble where they were inflating their revenues and sales to get everyone on there. And there was basically a flash crash. People went out of business during the dot-coms, and there weren't enough credits to go around. Like they couldn't make it work. So they actually had a SEC fine. They're no longer public. They sort of took it private after that. But it sort of goes to show you, like, danger of opacity, like we talked about several times today already. Um, and fragmentation. So this sort of made me think of Rosen a bit, right? Talking about your stranded value. Alice is in the Ozarks. She has 50,000 worth of credits built up over several years. She semi-retires and just shuts down the business, which not everyone always sells their business. It may just be her and one of the two other people, and she just shuts it down. She moves to New York, gets an itch, starts up a business there. She can't really use any of those credits because you can't take a trade currency dollar in the Ozarks. No one in New York City gives a shit, right? Like they're not gonna give you any money for it. So you get stranded. You can They will facilitate a little bit at this point, but that's a huge missing layer. So these guys do a great job vetting members, bringing them on board, tax reporting, dealing with issues between vendors on the exchange. They're not interoperable across the different exchanges. There is no transparent reserves, no capital efficiency. They won't lend you money. You can't borrow credits. You can't lend your credits. And there's no neutral settlement layer across the different exchanges. No, no. Which is why I think this is a very good opportunity for the right people. So there are two actual federated, if you want to call them bridges, Barter Association National Currency. NATE is the National Association of Trade Exchanges. Uh, you as a vendor on an exchange cannot use it. Your local exchange that you're part of has to pay a fee. Then they take some cut of your money going across to a new exchange. They have to approve everything. There's a lot of horse swapping and a lot of phone calls to get this thing done. That one, they have to approve your exchange. Only 40 exchanges are in there. There's over 200 exchanges across the US. So it's not that big. They're basically the bigger ones working together, keeping the small guys out. And then you have universal currency, which is bigger, the international, uh, shoot, I'm not going to remember, something in trading association, retail trading association, I think. Uh, they have 100 of the exchanges globally. They're a little bit larger. They charge a quarter point on every dollar that flows through them across these different networks, which isn't too bad. Uh, to be a member of that trade organization is not hard. It's not like it's more of an open option. But there's several hundred that basically aren't connected in any way, shape, or form. And they might be, but when I talked to my guys and said, "Hey, I'm coming out to Colorado as an example. What if I had credits and I wanted to use them at a hotel here, Airbnb, restaurant, whatever, book a restaurant for everybody, with some free credits I had." And he was like, "Well, I'd have to make a lot of calls." Like it's always like, yeah, it can be done, but it's not probably doable or very possible. Ergo's value proposition or a project protocol on Ergo. Economics, 1 million of volume, cost 1% probably on the other exchanges on Ergo. It's a couple $100. Access, you can make it permissionless. You could also make it permissioned, just to vet the exchanges that are coming on board. Transparency would be there, privacy, we can use Sigma protocols, zero knowledge proofs, etc. And we'll get into that a little bit. And you allow the networks to do what they do, what they're good at, right? They're good at being the local person holding everybody's hand and shaking hands and kissing babies locally, and we can handle the actual settlement, moving things around, and being that kind of layer. Again, addressable market, I'm hitting this again just so that you guys see it, 2.5 billion. And that's globally, but probably 80% of that's North America. Um, Current exchange volume, it's not really, and I mean inter exchange volume, it's not really published anywhere, but um, in total. So it's probably about 20 million. So maybe 20, 30 million out of 2.5 billion is moving across these exchanges. Uh, I'd say if you only got 10% of adoption, you're looking at a quarter billion moving annually on Ergo. Um, and again, you don't have a lot of gatekeepers to overcome, and it's not about replacing these exchanges. I've sort of gone down that route. Uh, in real world assets, total volume on Ergo, I have no clue. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, maybe 500,000 a day before the price is lower now. So maybe like 400,000. Yeah, probably. Yeah. And it's not about replacing these exchanges, right? It's about connecting them. They're good at what they do. They are a value add for their members. It's not like they're doing a shitty job necessarily. It's that they don't really have the tooling to do what would even make it a uh, better tool for their members. Uh, Programmability, privacy, blockchain in general, efficiency, sustainability, permissionless. You have security. Um, so multi-party settlement, escrow. I mean, Luca, MG Pi, and NZ, who was the other? Yeah, helped us with Sigma Lock. We'll show you guys that a little bit later on today. But I mean, that's a pretty sweet little escrow or conditional logic that we have be applicable here, or something similar to that would be applicable here. Um, why not other chains? And you'd see this if anybody else gave this from Polkadot or Cardano or anything else. But Bitcoin limited programmability, Ethereum high fees. How are you going to do small transactions? Unless you go to layer two, and then you got other issues there possibly. Pre-mine foundation control. It's not really as neutral as you want it to be. Um, I think earlier we were talking about privacy and ZK proofs on some of those networks, and are they really private if that's what they're pushing you towards? Um, Permissioned chains, I'd sort of put like proof of stake pretty much right there. You still have gatekeepers, network politics, and then most other L1s. I mean, it's centralized, expensive, or their tokenomics aren't really sustainable. Um, uh, Ergo, we know we're expressive on top of UTXO. Perfect fit for if you're trying to move 1,000 credits from this network to that network. And boxes can reference other boxes. I mean, I'm talking to devs. You guys know this stuff. It's not really, I'm giving you guys a whole lot of info here. Sigma protocols. I've been noodling around with the opportunity of if you brought on one of these exchanges, say the local trade partners in the Ozarks, their software has API access. You could prove credit history, you could prove collateral, you could prove borrowing requirements for the actual individual vendors, right? Some of that data can be fed in to a protocol. And we'll get to that in a little bit. I mean, there's some cool things you can do. Um, Storage rent, it sounds hokey, but I think demurrage is pretty cool. Some of the more successful local currencies have had a attrition, like it expires at some point in time, so you could just tell the exchange that's part of the deal. This stuff's only going to be there for 4 years, use it or lose it, and that should actually be a motivating thing for the exchange because the vendors will then use their exchange more, they make more fees, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Transaction finality, 2 minutes for block. It's a day for, full lockdown confirmation, but 2 minutes isn't a big deal. Sub blocks is coming up, so it wouldn't even be a deal. Low fees, developer tools. We have some of the existing frameworks or concepts that could be applied to this. Current isolated islands. So you got the ITEX network, the one that committed fraud 25 years ago. The one with mine in the Ozarks and the one here in Rocky Mountain, if they're going to connect, they got to make phone calls, faxes, emails. I mean, just old school crap, right, to get it done. I don't even know. They might even be using mail still. Um, there's no liquidity moving across. Uh, and again, it's the whole stranded value, dead capital. Say you build up a lot of business, but you haven't been able to spend it yet. You might have $30,000 worth of credits. Like Alice, she has built a bunch of decks for people. Now she needs to wait till the winter when she can actually do the maintenance on her equipment, buy new equipment, whatever. Future shared infrastructure. ITEX has 5,000 members. The Ozarks, they have 500. The one here locally has 100. So now you've combined this and made it, 5,600 members with a settlement layer that works and sort of feeds what they need. Yeah, the real innovation is not technical. It is, don't get me wrong, devs, but it's recognizing that the network is the value creator, not us. They're not just rent-seeking shitty middlemen like Coinbase. The blockchain is an infrastructure layer, right? It can be their account ledger that's open, transparent. Simple contracts are better than a complex bridge. Uh, Not looking to build a replacement or some kind of super complex bridge. It would all be settled on Ergo. You wouldn't have to like move across to Ethereum and different stuff. We could because Rosen exists, but there would really be no need to do that. One of the discussions today about AVL trees and things like that. I mean, you can do some pretty neat stuff with their ledgers and just like keep augmenting them. I mean, just on chain. I mean, have a easily viewable what's happening. Um, so yeah, potential core innovations, cross network settlement bridge for them, it would be a big thing. So let's talk about Alice again. She needs some specialty wood for this deck. She's building something for one of my clients. It has like a $20 million house. It looks like an art museum. And he has really nice teak wood and he wants it aspen. He wants it to be, like he wants to be able to tell all his friends about it. Uh, she could call Bob and he's like, hey, I'm in a barter network. She asks him, and then, how do we make that happen? And Bob's like, well, hell, I'm coming to the Ozarks. I'm going to Crystal Bridges. It's the nicest art museum in the US outside of New York or DC, and has the largest, uh, just for a little plug, the most American art in the world at one location. In fact, that's what it's dedicated to. And it has a Frank Lloyd Wright house that they deconstructed, reconstructed there. It's pretty sweet. So he's going to go there. He's already planning on it. So he's like, sweet, yeah, I'll give you the wood, you give me the credits, but like, how do we make that happen, right? Like, different networks, they're not operable. That's sort of where we come in, or innovation would come in. Uh, Same kind of things that we've talked about with Sigma Lock or some of the other uh, staking locking protocols. If you don't accept, it's auto refunded. If an oracle doesn't attest to it, etc. I mean, there's different things to fail safe this. Um, so Alice would initiate the request. It goes to Bob. I mean, this looks like any cross network swap, nothing fancy to us, but to them, it would allow them to actually do a business deal and get what they wanted. Um, so yeah, it's pretty neat to me, as more of a business guy, not a dev guy. Lending and borrowing pools, think duck pools, think something similar. Some of the staking you guys were talking about, that sort of comes into this as well. Um, right now, I've not found a barter exchange out of the 2.5 billion of annual volume. I haven't found one that allows people to lend their barter credits to others. Might happen, I don't know, but I haven't found it yet. So I think that's a pretty, neat, easy thing for Ergo to be able to accomplish for these people, even if it's within your own network. I'm not talking about using Ozark credits to get Rocky Mountain. I'm just talking about, I got a bunch of credits I don't need right now. Let someone else get them for cheap or borrow them. Um, there's a scenario here. It's not really that important, really, but it's Alice is seasonal, right? So she builds up a lot of credits in the spring, summer, fall. And then in the winter, she needs to spend credits because she's going to buy a new vehicle or some new equipment, whatnot. So in the summer, she has 40,000 idle credits just sitting there till the winter when she can actually upgrade her equipment. And it's sort of when she has time to work on the new equipment, get it all set up, ready for the next year. With lending pools, she can put that out, let other people borrow it. Um, you can do something, I mean, similar to duck pools, just say, hey, it's a 3% or 4% base, and then it's based on, utilization, right? And just put a utilization curve on it, nothing exotic. These are regular business people that have a bank account. 3% is nice, right? Like, I mean, there's a way for the protocol to capture value here, right? Like, because they're allowing that to occur. Uh, and then in the winter, she needs to get 30 or 25, $35,000 worth of stuff. Then she can either borrow and just have like a 2 or 3% spread against her borrowing cost versus her lending cost, or cash in her credits. I mean, she may want a bigger truck next year, so she's going to keep the credits and just pay that marginal spread. There's a lot of ways to look at it. Uh, you can do some on-chain credit scoring. It seems like it's possible. Uh, these exchanges, The one in Central Arkansas where I'm at is it's on AS 400 in grain bar paper. Like, I mean, it ain't you ain't getting nothing out of them. The one up in the Ozarks, there is one platform. He continues to buy out other platforms. That is the software platform that powers these networks. He's good at what he does. Um, there's API access, things like that. So they have all the transaction volumes. They know reliability of vendors, grading of the vendors. Yeah, one guy. He's out in Boston. MG Pi may need to go meet with him. And but yeah, I mean, you could create a credit scoring, right? Like off of the data that the network already has. And think about if you're Alice trying to get wood from Bob and maybe you didn't have enough credits, you could say, hey, let me give you an IOU, right? Like, and he would accept your network IOU because he sees you have great credit score and you're not welching on your bets, right? Like you're a real person. Um, so yeah, a little bit about like the interest rate discovery. This isn't new to anybody who's used duck pools or a lot of the other lending protocols that exist now. But just a utilization, based. For example, my line of credit at my bank is 7.75%. So I mean, 8%, hell, I'd borrow all day on that. Like that wouldn't bother me at all if I could get credits and I knew I was going to earn some more that year and pay them off. That's no big deal. 14%, 20% might be a little iffy, but what it does is as those rates get higher, people add more to the pool, like you guys have seen with duck pools, and then it starts pushing the interest rate down until borrowers go back up. You just hit that equilibrium. Decentralized lending pool mechanics. You guys know the drill if you've used duck pools. But think if you're the hotel, I mean, you can just start making extra money on this, right? If you're an independent hotel or independent franchise is allowed to do it. Say you're the landscape guy that's starting up your own company and you don't have all the equipment you need, you can go out and now borrow money in the network and then go to the Toro dealer that's in the network and get your equipment. And again, the local barter exchange is happy about this because you just created more volume for them to pocket 10% or 15% or whatever it is. And they have more members. Um, Provable reserves, like a centralized exchange, you don't know. And some of these have gone under. So you could build up credits in one of these, and again, you don't get paid cash, right? So if I do work under this exchange, I get no cash. It's all in these trade credits. If this trade organization goes out of business, I effectively just did work for worse than free. I paid materials into it too, right? Like not just time and effort, like not just the variable cost, but everything's gone. Um, so you could do, again, provable reserves, that everything balances out in these things. Um, you'd have a dashboard, pretty simple. I mean, in theory, right? Some UX issues there, but there's a fraud case. It's impossible to inflate reserves if it's actually there on chain. Uh, and this would help people if they want to join the network or trade with the network. You may not want to send your credits to the Rocky Mountain network because it looks a little dodgy or they're not that well collateralized, right? There's more on one side than the other just because of the imbalance that's occurring. Um, Oracle problems, like always, right? Reputation, time delay, etc. Scalability, user experience. I mean, all these things I think are pretty simple to do, but uh, with the right tools and the right people. Um, Regulatory. Um, I haven't looked into this all the way. I don't think that they already do this, right? So like my exchange in the Ozarks will send money to another one. I don't think that there's a money transmission license to deal with or anything like that, or they already have that sorted out themselves. Um, I don't think it really adds a whole lot of tax reporting complexity. The only thing it would add is 1099 INT for interest earned on the pooled lending. Yeah, and they're already getting a 1099B. So I mean, you're just giving them one more data point to give to these people to show that you earned interest on your credits. Um, yeah, the bigger issue is adoption, right? It's always a chicken and egg thing. Um, and so I think it would be starting with a couple smaller ones that are accessible and progressive, and then going from there. Yes. Uh, Well, right. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, so the question was about algorithmic stable coins and if it's pegging to that. I'm not saying peg it to the now algorithmic stable coin. Yeah, if you had local trade partner credits or dollars and then you had one from New York or one from, wherever, it's still in that currency. You're not commingling those pools per se, right? So like you would set up a lending pool for each of those networks. And then you would give them the ability to borrow in that network because you want to buy aspen wood from the guy right down the street or from Joe and tell him to go log a couple off his property. I mean, that's sort of the way it would go. Uh, nobody, nobody. Banks, yeah, it's banks, yeah, yeah. So that's why everyone should want to do it. Um, because you can, as the vendor, you can become your own bank or at least partially your own bank, right? So like you can now pay. I had this concept in grad school, so I used to audit a couple companies that were small, like they did fishing lures, and then another one that was in Walmart, right? And they blew up, and Walmart blows you up to a certain size, like 20, 30 million in sales, and you're like, woo! And then you have to go out and get a $20 million loan to sustain that. And then once they know you got that loan, 3 months later, they come to you and go, I think I'm gonna have to pay about 50 cents on the dollar what I used to pay you. And like they just sort of get you squeezed in. And then on top of that, they pay you at 120 days. So it's like they're screwing you every different way. But now you can. I had a concept in grad school that if Walmart actually became a lender to their vendors, they'd make more money than what they're doing now by squeezing everyone for 120-day terms. Uh, no, it would work. Like economically, it should work. So I think this could actually create a bigger alternative economy when the business can become partially their own line of credit, right? Like you have free credits or you've earned credits that now you can lend out. So anyway, um, struggling business, most eager to borrow. That gets back to the vetting on the front end from the network and the transaction history they already have on these people and sort of bringing that on chain so that uh, I talked about the equilibrium, but you can also put penalties, right? Like give them a credit score. And if your credit score is bad or you're new, you have a bad credit score, right? When you're 17, 18, 19, you don't have a good credit score because you haven't built up credit, right? In theory. And so they could have to pay an extra 5 or 10% or whatever, right, to get the credits. So yeah, that's sort of the presentation. So yeah, they're already operating peer to peer. So yeah, any other questions? I have a bunch of just random stuff back here. Right. Well, no, yeah, so the question is, do you need a credit score? Yeah, right. Well, so uh, what I looked at was collateralized, right? Because we're familiar with duck pools. If it's more traditional, like bank-based on credit scores, then you could hybrid it, right? And they might even be able to onboard more businesses to the network because now you can borrow at a better rate to get equipment from the Toro dealer or the Ford truck dealer or whatever, right? Like it sort of makes that network even more powerful, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, that's the whole thing. Go ahead, Chris. Oh, hold on. Say it again. Right. So yeah, the question is like, does tokenizing the credits like add a new tax layer for the vendor like Alice or Bob that we were talking about? Um, so I would look at it more like one, I could be wrong, and I'm wrong every day very often, but uh, I think if you're providing this service, right? If Alice builds up 40,000 in credits, she's getting like say she gets paid 40,000 that year for building decks. She's getting a 1099B from the local trade partners that you file that 1099B on your tax return, business tax return, or personal, just however you're set up as a corporation. That flows through as 40,000 of income because you have your normal expenses you're paying out in fiat, right? So like it's already there. It's just like a receipt. And so the only thing I'm looking at is the interest you would be earning would then generate a 1099 INT, right? Like you get from a bank showing we paid you 0.02% interest this year on your cash. Thanks for parking all your money with Bank of America. So it would be that kind of thing. I'm not looking at it where Alice necessarily has, and this is going to sound funny. I'm not looking at it per se where Alice has like an Ergo wallet and she has like these local trade partner credit tokens in her wallet. We're the settlement layer for it. I'm not sure if you wouldn't just reskin Nautilus to where that's all they see is like their one thing. Like, I mean, just make it its own silo or even maybe do a side chain for all this. I don't know per se. Well, and you would also send out a what's the one? We would also need to send out, or we would provide the information to the local exchange network so that they could give you the 1099 and maybe 1098 like on like your home loan that shows the interest you paid, but it'd be like a interest expense, right? Like they need to be able to put that on their tax return like, hey, I borrowed money and I paid $1,000, right? Like they need to be able to put that on their return. Yeah, this one. Yeah, we're like she profits. So yeah, so it's sort of it's a good example and it's not right because you're trying to show business and I showed her getting like teeth. Uh, let's say she bought a, I don't know, a auger attachment for a skid steer, so she can put in deck poles, right? Like, I mean, so she can drive them. Um, yeah. Well, in the auger bit, I mean, it's several grand, but it depends on if you got it new or used. But so that 5 grand, she gets something that is reported to the IRS, and then she reports to the IRS on her business tax form that she made $5,000 in income. It's just like normal income. The expense would then be she keeps record, like she's getting an invoice. You're still getting an invoice showing payment, right? It's just that it got settled in this non-fiat currency. And then extra 10% that she pays the network, they report something to her showing that she paid that fee as well. So that's also a business deduction. So, yeah. No, she built a deck, right? So she went out and built a deck for someone, got $5,000. She gives them an invoice. They pay her 5,000 in credits. They have the invoice to show that they paid that expense. Right. Yes. Right. Right. Well, uh, so the question is if banks are already getting affected by it, does it how do I say this clearly? Are they going to take notice and, is anything we're doing affecting a bank? Yeah, yeah, yeah. If this thing grows because of this, like because it becomes more attractive to businesses, small, medium businesses to do this, does it affect banks? Possibly. I don't know. I mean, my family friend that owns a, I mean, I don't know, it's like a 50 branch bank. He doesn't give a shit about $2 billion. I mean, like it's not all in his network. Like it's spread across so many banks. They don't know they're not getting it right now. I mean, honestly, 2 billion is nothing to banking system. Like it's nothing. And yeah, and you said, so what's holding back this concept? A lot of people, I think Joe may have said it, someone else may have said it as well. People are sort of inherently lazy, right? This takes a little bit extra hustle, right? One, it takes you, if you're a barter member, to say, hey, can I pay you in barter bucks, right? And most people feel uncomfortable trying to do something like that or hustle or, whatever. Um, it's something else to have to deal with. Uh, and yeah, so if I do a project and make like 8, 10 grand in some guy's backyard doing this project for him, how long am I going to sit on that 10 grand? Like I better have very low fixed costs and very low variable costs because I might be sitting on that 10 grand for a while before I can use it all. And that's what I think this, to me, it's a fungibility, like you said, and I think it's also a network effect issue. I mean, none of them have scale, right? So I mean, there's always that network effect. They've done really good. So like Colorado Springs, you guys have been around here a bit, but it's like 750 like MSA, maybe a million. Like it's a good sized population. Northwest Arkansas, fastest growing MSA in the country for multiple years now in a row. Yeah. It's about 750K now. When I was, like 20, 30 years ago, there's maybe like 250 people. Yeah, 250,000 people. So it's if they have about 750,000 in their MSA, Metropolitan Statistic Association or area, metropolitan, yeah, area, um, and they're doing 10 million a year. Those guys are hustling, but they're hustling because you saw they're making 10%, right? So that's like three people. One of them's a secretary, one of them's the owner, one of them's this business dev guy, splitting $1 million a year. That's pretty good coin, right? And I'm not saying replace those guys. They should be getting paid that if they're hustling that hard. The guys in Rocky Mountain are doing 500,000 a year. Could. I mean, I think the lending pools is a big thing. I think there's the cross network thing is pretty huge. Making that available, but that's a chicken egg thing. I think the in network lending I think is the biggest, and I believe uh, why it's also a hurdle is the software that exists could easily do this as well, right? This isn't hard, it's a ledger. I mean, not being nasty to blockchain or Ergo, but it's a ledger, right? This software is already keeping a ledger, doing their 1099s. It's not, it's not, uh, it's not clear and transparent, right? So like, why would I lend my bucks out of my account on this network when I can't see where they're going or anything else, right? So I mean, I think that's where blockchain trumps the federated or, closed system. Um, yeah, right, right. How to do a right. Y- I have and I haven't, right? Like this has sort of been in the back of my head for a while, and I sort of spit it out the last couple of days. What are you guys raising your hands here in the front row? No? Okay. Yeah. We'll pay in Faku. Um, that'll get every dev running. Yeah, so the question from Chris was like, what would it take to attract a dev to do this? I honestly, I don't know. I don't truly know how complex this is. At the end of the day, I think it is more, and that's why I said it's a non-dev dev thing. I think it's more getting the first couple exchanges on board with giving you the data, right? Giving you the API access to the data or whatever the output from their system to get that data. And then what can you do with it? With the lending pools, I think one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I think there's seven devs in here. That whole side of the room, actually. Um, I think any of them could take duck pools and modify it for this. I mean, or find a way to modify it for this. Um, and so, I mean, if you started with that as a proof of concept, right? Just the lending pool. So, I mean, I think, again, to Joe's earlier point today of we strive for open protocols for a reason. I think this is a good bolt-on reason. I mean, it sort of segued into what I was talking about, but I mean, I think anybody in here that I'm looking at that's devs on this side, they're all way more talented than anything I would come up with or even want to teach someone, I mean, they can modify that stuff. It's there. I mean, some of the back end maybe isn't, or, some of the front end stuff we'd have to develop, but I mean, some of it's sort of there in a way. Right. Oh, sure. Right. Right. Yeah, so that's a good question. So what piece of the pie is for the dev? The existing software that I said, like several of the more modern exchanges are ones that have decent websites and whatnot. I mean, it's sort of like if you want to think of Zoho or like Salesforce, like CRM, like it's a CRM basically with this bolted onto it. But a guy's built it from scratch. Like it's not. I've sort of looked at it enough to see that at least I believe it's not like a existing CRM package. It's what he's built from scratch. Um, I don't know what he charges for that software. I've tried to find out. It's obviously not published. There's not a lot of customers for it, right? So if it's one dev and he's charging 5 grand a year to, I don't know, 40, 50 customers, I mean, that's a pretty good nut. And he can do other stuff because now he just has a spinning top, right? Without a whole lot of, moving parts going forward. So what this would earn or yield, I mean, to me, it's going to have to be built at cost to figure out how to monetize it. Like, I don't know if it's earning off the lending pool. I don't know if it's a fee to the networks. They're already paying a fee to this guy. Does he try to replicate it? Like, I mean, there's a couple moving parts. So I don't have a good answer for that because I really haven't taken that step in my head because I was still just, noodling around with the research. Yeah, Luke. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, so the question is, can you chicken and egg, and do you try to replicate the software for one and get others to join, for interoperability across the networks? I really don't think so. I think it's a can of worms. I mean, right now it's a one guy show, owns somebody built a new one out of Detroit like a couple years ago. He bought them out. And just here's your money. Let's combo it up, right? Like, I don't want competition. It's an oligopoly or a complete monopoly. Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin it, but yeah, no, this was just more just to get people thinking about. I mean, to me, the biggest thing is it is a group that's already organized, already licensed. They're not doing anything shady, and they're not using fiat to the tune of 2.5 billion a year. Is it a sales problem, dev problem? I think for them scaling, it's always going to be a network effect problem. So, and I think yeah, I'm done, man.
It's a super interesting thing because it's like proof of work itself is most profitable when you have excess capacity, whether of energy or
Yep.
of computational power, right? And so networks like this potentially allow people to redirect excess capacity in whatever skill set they have and in essence tokenize it, right?
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
they
in a
turn it
way.
into credit. Now, there's always like the human element where it's like, okay, if I'm a restaurant and my excess capacity is my old shit, is it lower quality, right? And then it's like, okay, how do you create the right enforcement mechanisms? And
Yeah.
some systems I would say probably are a little bit aggressive in terms of like maybe they have credit limits in terms of how much you can spend or where or fees or whatever. But we do see a lot of the quote unquote gig economy that is basically people trying to take excess capacity and turn it into credit. So it's a super interesting idea, in terms of how to coordinate. Like on the organic side, I have no idea. I'm the wrong person. But as a net idea, it's quite fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is it is that excess capacity and the gig economy is growing. So, I mean, I would say that was, uh, a lot of the gig economy stuff that I see, and you guys could tell me I'm wrong, but a lot of it is that low variable cost or no fixed cost. So it's like your only variable cost is maybe a little bit of money and your labor. So if you can monetize that, I mean, he was telling me the other day, the guy that, I interface with in ours that's in the Ozarks, he was like, oh, one of my best clients is a independent hotel in Branson, which I mean, they bring in just slews of tourists all year long. He's like, dude, he kills it. Like, I mean, he will absolutely, like, he's calling me all the time. Hey, can you take credits from, some other network somewhere else to do it? Because someone wants to come with their family or extended family and, wants 10 rooms for a week. Well, shit, for him, 10 rooms for a week, he didn't even have to bring in one extra employee. So, yeah, he wants those credits because then he can take that and go buy supplies and everything else with it. And he got it for free. I mean, it's real, it's my initial uh inclination is always just take out Goliath, right? Like just go topple him. But I think this one is more the Trojan horse. I mean, you got to get in first and then figure out there's enough CRM stuff out there that any good dev on this side could skin it and rebuild this thing, I think, in like a week. Like the software or this side. Are there devs over here? I don't know. Oh, we got AI devs. Sorry, yeah. And so yeah, I mean my initial thing is always to toss Goliath on the ground, but it's I think this one's more the Trojan horse. And then figuring out how to do it from there. And then you could, in theory, once you got good enough at this, one of the things with the lending pools that would be, I don't think a hard step, but it does have to be under Sigma protocols, right? Like Alice doesn't want people to know that it's her 30,000 that she's putting on that lending pool. So I mean, like, but I think that's relatively easily doable, but it's not. It's steps that can be done to do that. And then down the road, yeah, once you understand the environment, yeah, you build your own and open it up to any small gig worker, right? And it's like everyone's on one network. You don't need a bunch of them. And you do need them for the deck builders and the dentists and stuff like that because they're a high touch and a high, like I mean, you gotta massage that person and kiss those babies, right? But for gig workers that want to just monetize their value and see this as a viable way to do it beyond fiat, yeah. I mean, there's some cool stuff you could do down the road, but it's understanding the ecosystem. I don't understand it well enough yet. So anyway, thank you guys. I forgot the Schumacher Institute. Social Trade Organization. Those are two great websites to look at to understand peer-to-peer money and business-to-business stuff. Um, I have an e-book that, I mean, it's free. You can get it yourself, but I can send anybody a copy. It's called Boosting Your Economy by Making Money Virtuous. And it goes through like local currencies and sort of the evolution of them over time and goes into the Sardis currency and some of the bigger ones over time that have been around. Um, that Friedman's Bank book that I talked about is pretty fascinating, just to understand opacity and lending, and it led to a lot of the banking rules that exist in the U.S. now. Because yeah, the Friedman's Bank, yeah, it's called Savings and Trust: The Rise and Fall of the Friedman's Bank. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, they got screwed again. And small is beautiful. Uh, Economics as if people mattered. It's a 50-something-year-old book written by the Schumacher guy. I think I got this for $5 on Amazon. Um, he wrote it of the excess going in from the 60s into the early 70s when then we had the oil embargo and crisis, and the first couple chapters he's talking about energy. Like we treat it like a resource that's always going to be there and like you can buy it. right? Because you can extract it from the ground, but it's not something that's always there. So, I mean, his point was there should have been a yield curve on the extraction costs coming out to help society develop solar and wind and whatnot. It's an interesting book, but it's again, it's 50 years old, but it's sort of the same. So far, the first couple, two or three chapters are like ringing true to today in some of the access we got now. So, anyway, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.